Well, good morning, everybody. As we start this new year here, I want to give you some of the highlights in the forecast that I'm expecting to be talking a lot about here over the next couple of weeks. And it's going to begin with a look at our drought monitor. You see, this was the map released at the very end of last year. And because of the shifting that's happening in the Pacific jet stream, the North Atlantic jet stream, and the way that ridging will respond over parts of Alaska and Greenland, we're going to finally dislodge the one thing I've been complaining about for at least a month and a half, and that is that northwest flow. We're expecting to get flow to be coming into the northwest United States, giving us snows in the Cascades and Northern Rockies, but then lows are going to eject out of the southern plains and then roll. Look at that, finally in this direction. That's southwest flow. So the point behind this is we're going to be watching for some bigger snows here. We're also going to be watching for them here in parts of New England, getting back here into parts of the Ohio Valley, and then very wet weather across the south, which means this whole drought picture is likely going to change a lot in the coming days and weeks. Now, a quick recap on a couple of things. Our root zone soil moisture problems throughout the Mississippi Valley, including the Ohio and the Missouri Valley, continues to be an issue that needs resolved throughout winter and into early spring. The Mississippi River, which a year ago had already begun this major recovery throughout the month of January, well, it needs to do it again this year because it's currently right now at about 4.5 feet below low stage. But we're going to be watching to see if the wetter conditions can start to erase some of these areas that have been so dry. I'm talking here about parts of California, the Intermountain West. I'm thinking a lot about the South and Mid-South because the last 30 days or so has been quite wet throughout parts of the plains, from parts of Texas all the way up to Minnesota. And the East Coast is in for it for a lot more precipitation in this upcoming pattern. So change is coming, but we need to see how it's going to get here. First, a couple of other metrics I want to keep an eye on. One is going to be snow. This map is our season-to-date percent of normal snowpack. So this is going to really change a lot. Not snowpack, forgive me. Snowfall, total snowfall. So a lot of this falls and then melts. But it's looking at the season-to-date numbers. This map is going to look much different in about 3 weeks from now, after we've seen these next few systems roll through. I'm concerned about the west, though, because if you look right now, the basin averages out here are well below 100%, which means compared to normal at this point in the year, our snowpack throughout the west is not where we want to see it. So can we get the flow to come through and dislodge what has been a very, very warm December and break things over colder and more active in the month of January? Well, we're going to be looking at a few things to kind of constructively add up to make that occur. The first is going to be El Nino. El Nino is likely at its peak right now. Temperatures out here in the middle of the open Pacific are about 1.5 degrees to 1.6 degrees Celsius above average. We have the negative PDO that's here. There's still a lot of warm water in the Atlantic. The Indian Ocean dipole is faded. But what I'm going to be watching most carefully is to see how the jet stream responds to the MJO moving over the top of this El Nino, which again has likely reached its peak. So this will be where the story's written. The Pacific jet, which extended at the end of the year, started to retract. And it's leaving us with these troughs of low pressure that start to invigorate the pattern going across North America. We've got 3 lined up. 1, the weakest one out front. 2, the second one that's going to be a big one to watch. And then 3, this one that's going to roll across the United States. It's being helped along by the fact that the MJO is breaking out and rolling through its normal phases. In other words, it came out of phase 1, it's moved through phase 2, it's getting into phase 3, and I just like the progression of this overall because we tend to get about a 7-day lag on it, but out here when it came through phase 2, we know that in January, if there's an El Nino helping out, you get this. Look at that trough. Ridging happening here toward Greenland. And these are the things that constructively interfere to give us better chances at getting the pattern to go overactive. Now you can tell there's a little excitement in my voice because we kind of talked and hoped for these things to happen. Well, I hoped for them to happen back in December, and now we're starting to see that manifest itself. So watch, ready? We're going to play this quickly. I want you just to keep your eye on the sequence of troughs that follow this line that I'm drawing right in through here, these arrows. Ready? Starting off today, playing through Tuesday into Wednesday, look at the sequence of them rolling up the East Coast after coming over the western mountains into the southern plains. We have multiple systems over the next 10 days that are going to follow that track. And as we get out here toward mid-January, we finally see ridging pinching into Alaska and Greenland, which means we open this up for more persistent, cooler air. And that's why our own National Weather Service and NOAA have released the risk of heavy precipitation in the Northeast and also here across parts of the South, up the Southeast and East Coast. Again, that flow coming in like this is what's making all of that happen. And on the northern side of it, with enough cold air, we have several areas we're watching for the risk of some heaviest snow. Now, we'll get some of the timing down on this in a few moments, but these two maps really just kind of typify what I think is going to be the biggest things to be thinking about with this pattern. Now, on the wetter side of things, over the next 10 days, this map shows you the probability of getting at least an inch of liquid. I'm not looking at snow yet. This is inch of liquid. But I want to comment on who's going to be on the drier side of this. Notice that parts of the plains, getting up here, especially in the northern plains and Canadian prairie, have yet to really see the right type of flow to return a system far enough to the north to be pulling in that moisture. So we're looking at drier conditions overall. And even though there's some better flow coming into California, we don't have a big subtropical jet slamming into it, which is why we see drier conditions there as well. Okay, let's get into the models. Here is what we're looking at over the next couple of days. So through Tuesday, sorry, let's get a refresh on that. There we go. So here we go. Through Tuesday, we're going to watch some showers moving across Texas into Louisiana, snow showers across the Great Lakes up against the mountains here. But then our next system comes into California on Wednesday, playing into Thursday here. Now watch this system dip into Arizona and New Mexico. Now the setup is this. Cold front sweeps through, high pressure comes in behind it right there. And this is the next low that's going to be rolling into this direction. Now watch as this plays out in our comparison between the GFS and the European. So we have one system. Let's get a refresh on that. Sorry. There we go. One system here. See the heavier rain across the south while the low comes into California. This is Tuesday into Wednesday. Now keep an eye on this. Ready? This is through Friday, Friday midday, getting into Friday evening, now Saturday morning. Watch the first sequence of lows roll up the East Coast. There it is. So I'll take you back again. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. See that? Now these models are going to change considerably over the coming days, but what you notice is the Ohio River Valley, interior of New England, best chance of picking up some snow. We do not know the amounts just yet, okay? That again is Friday through Sunday. Now at that same time, a much deeper trough comes into the west. This is now Sunday morning, playing out through the day on Sunday into Monday. The next system cranks out right here. So watch again, Monday into Tuesday. Both models are seeing this. And you can see there's a following trough here that hits the northeast, northwest by the time we get into Tuesday. There's a whole lot going on in this pattern. So just giving you that brief update, letting you know what to watch. Remember, all of these maps are on agweather.com, ag-wx.com. You can watch them, each new model run play out. But let me give you some of the bigger ideas. Next 10 days from the European model. Wettest conditions across the south and up the east coast. Drier than average in through this area, although there are chances for some moisture coming through. This is the GFS, so European GFS, very similar overall in the placement. On the snowy side of it, though, these are 10-day forecast maps. So what you have to hear me say is these are going to change. I'm simply blurring my eyes and looking at the corridors. That's all I'm doing here. And what I've got is our first system doing this, our second system coming in like this, and the net effect is we're looking at two snowy corridors, one here and then one there. Now the west, look at the Sierra Nevadas getting into the Cascades. The Cascades really adding up the chance of getting 30, 40 inches of snow. Same with the Northern Rockies. Love it. That's the European. This is the GFS. Now please do not pause the video and go pick out your spot in Missouri or Kansas or Pennsylvania. Go, oh, I'm going to get 25 inches of snow. We don't know that yet. And that's why we often find ourselves looking more at the probability maps to give us a better indication. So here you go. 10-day forecast, probability of 3 inches. So now you can see those corridors. Okay, what about 6 inches? What about stepping this up to a foot? Now you see what we're talking about? These are the risk areas that were identified by the Climate Prediction Center as being the snowiest corridors. So keep your focus here, not on the individual model runs. I'm telling you, you're going to see a lot of garbage on social media of folks that just grab maps, toss them up there with no explanation, weird snowfall ratios. Just ignore it, okay? Please ignore it because there is no known solution just yet. All of this still has yet to manifest itself. But I can tell you this, following this, the jet's going to continue to stay invigorated across the East Coast while it retracts in the Pacific. And that's why we get a little bit of a drier signal here into California, wet in the Northwest, but very wet up the East Coast continuing at that time frame. Now, you know I mentioned some colder air, and let me show you where it is. Here's your next 5 days, but day 5 through 10, there we go. Sorry about that lag there. There's day 5 through 10, and then this is day 10 through 15. There we go. Now take a look at that. We're finally pushing some warmth into Greenland, warmth into Alaska. So where does the cold go? Here. This could be helped along by the fact our polar vortex is a bit disrupted right now. And there are some indications that we could get a piece of the stratospheric polar vortex by around the 10th of January to break off, helping to reinforce that cold air. But this is yet to be the strongest signal for brutally, brutally cold, long duration outbreaks of air. Okay, so it's not there yet, but there's going to be some colder air in place, just not the full-on Arctic blast that doesn't let go for 30 days. We're not there yet in this pattern. But we can look out there at the newest update from the CPC for the month of January. I'll have new longer range data coming in later this week and over the weekend, which I'll analyze and present to you next week. But as it stands, this is what I think is a pretty good look at. I totally agree with what they've got here for the month of January from the CPC. So no reason to kind of muddy this up with other forecasts. I like this one. All right. Now, South America, as we finish this up, we have finally made a change. The flow is coming out of the tropics, not out of the subtropics, which is where it had been coming from. And as a result, this 3-month-long duration drought that's hit the northern and central and western growing areas of Brazil is about to come to an end. Because over the next 15 days, the chances in this area of picking up 4 to 6 inches of rainfall is very high. A little drier here, but this has not been an area that's been in such deep drought as Mato Grosso, Tocantins, Goiás, Minas Gerais, and Bahia, these areas over here. So very, very heavy rainfall expected to come in here. And this is the last thing I want to tell you. If this doesn't stop, in other words, let's imagine the pattern breaks, the moisture's in place, it's being recycled. If it doesn't stop, we now have a problem with harvesting a crop that's already late because it had to be partly replanted and it got hit with incredibly hot temperatures, which delayed some of the late season planting. This could now delay the harvesting, which could be a very important factor going forward into the forecast as we stretch this out through the rest of January. Watch for it now to be too wet. That's what I'm worried about, okay? To wrap this up, one last thing. I'm not going to be able to produce a video early tomorrow morning. I got to catch a very early flight out of Chicago, but I'll pick back up on Friday. Have a good one. Thanks.